In the very beginning, when the world was new and untouched, there was a family. This was not just any family, it was the first family. Adam and Eve, created by God, lived in a world of pure wonder. They walked in the Garden of Eden, a place of perfect harmony and beauty. Everything was fresh, from the air they breathed to the ground beneath their feet. They were the parents of all humanity, the start of a story that would stretch across millennia. Their lives were a testament to creation itself, a living example of God's grand design for the earth and everything within it. Their firstborn son was named Cain. He was born outside the gates of Eden in a world that was now more challenging. The ground was hard, and survival required sweat and toil. Cain grew up knowing this reality. He became a tiller of the soil, a farmer who worked the land to bring forth its bounty. He was strong and determined, a man shaped by the earth he cultivated day after day. He represented a new chapter for humanity, one of struggle, but also of perseverance. Cain was the first child born into a world of consequence, a world where choices mattered deeply. Alongside Cain was his younger brother, Abel. While Cain worked the fields, Abel became a keeper of sheep. He tended his flocks, moving with them across the green pastures. The two brothers represented the earliest forms of human labor and existence. They were different in their tasks, but shared a common bond as the first siblings on earth. They lived under the watchful eyes of their parents and, they believed, of God. Their story was the first story of brotherhood, a relationship that would define much of human history to come. It was a simple time, yet one filled with profound meaning. This early world was a place of immense silence and breathtaking scale. Imagine a landscape with no cities, no roads, no signs of human civilization beyond a single family's dwelling. The sun rose over vast, empty plains and set over rugged mountains. The stars at night would have been unbelievably bright, a brilliant canopy over a silent earth. It was in this setting that the first human drama began to unfold. The choices made by this single family would ripple through time, shaping the destiny of all who came after them. Their joys, their sorrows, and their conflicts were the seeds of our own story. The story of Cain takes a dark and tragic turn. It is a story known to millions, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. An offering was made to God. Cain brought fruit from the soil he had worked so hard to cultivate. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, the best of his sheep. God looked with favor on Abel's offering, but not on Cain. This act of divine preference ignited a fire within Cain's heart, anger, deep jealousy, a new and dangerous emotion for humanity. A shadow that fell over the world's first family. This jealousy festered, from a small seed of resentment into a towering tree of rage. Cain's face was downcast, his spirit troubled. God spoke to him, warning him about the sin crouching at his door, waiting to devour him. But Cain did not listen. He allowed the darkness to take hold, in a field, away from the eyes of his parents. He rose up against his brother Abel. He killed him. The first murder, a terrible stain on the fabric of the new world. The blood of a brother cried out from the very ground Cain had once farmed. As consequence, God placed a curse upon Cain. He would become a restless wanderer on the earth, forever exiled from his family and his home. The ground that had once provided him sustenance would no longer yield crops. He was cast out, sent to live a life of solitude and remorse. Yet God placed a mark on Cain, not a sign of shame, a sign of protection, a warning to anyone who might find him: do not kill him. His punishment would be to live, not to die. This is where the commonly told story often ends. We see him as the first murderer, a wanderer cursed to roam alone. But what if that wasn't the end? The Bible offers a small but powerful clue that his story continued. The gates of home closed behind Cain, not with a sound, but with a final, crushing silence. A lone figure walking away from an empty gate. He was now an outcast, severed from the life he had known. The familiar fields where he had toiled, the scent of morning dew on the crops, the faces of his mother and father. Memories now. He carried the weight of his crime in every step. The earth itself seemed to reject him, the soil alien beneath his feet. This was the beginning of true punishment, unending loneliness. Every sunrise brought grief and regret. The sun felt like judgment on his path. He was walking east into the unknown. He was also walking away from the man he used to be. Abel's face is a haunting memory, a constant reminder of the rage that shattered everything. He was a wanderer, his mind a prison replaying the tragedy. Imagine the turmoil inside him. Cain was a storm of feelings, searing guilt, the sharp sting of loss, a flicker of defiance. He was cursed, yes, but he was also protected by God's mark, doomed to wander yet meant to survive. The land east of Eden was wild and untamed. There were no paths to follow, no shelters to find refuge in. Cain had to learn to survive in a world not designed for a farmer. The ground would not yield its fruit for him, so he had to forage for whatever he could find. Bitter roots, scarce berries, anything to quell the hunger that gnawed at him. He learned the harsh language of the wilderness, signs of predators, the whisper of the wind that promised rain or dust. Each day, a battle for survival, a testament to the raw human will to live, even in despair. Days bled into weeks and weeks into an eternity of walking. The landscape changed, but the feeling of desolation remained constant. Cain crossed vast plains, sun-scorched, the horizon shimmering with heat. He climbed rugged mountains that tore at his clothes and his skin. He navigated dense, tangled forests where sunlight struggled to pierce the thick canopy of leaves. Each new terrain was a fresh challenge, a new test of his endurance. The world felt immense, endless, and utterly indifferent to his suffering. He was a single, solitary speck of life, a man defined by the vast space that surrounded him. The mark on his forehead was a constant, unseen presence. It was a shield, but also a brand that set him apart from everything. If he encountered a wild beast, it would shy away. If he stumbled upon a hidden spring, the water would cool his brow, but not the fire within his soul. This divine protection was a lonely gift. It ensured his life would continue, but it also reinforced his isolation. He could not die, but could he truly live? The mark was a testament to God's complex justice, a reminder that even in punishment there was a thread of preservation, a purpose he could not yet comprehend. He began to see the world not as a farmer, but as a wanderer. His hands, once caked with the dark, rich soil of his farm, were now calloused and scarred from climbing rocks and gathering thorny plants. He was being reshaped by the wilderness and forging the survivor. In this solitude, his senses became heightened. He could hear the faintest rustle in the bushes, smell the distant promise of rain on the dry air. He learned the patterns of the wind and the migration of birds. This was not a world of human community, but it was a world teeming with its own life, its own rules. Cain, the outcast, became an unwilling student of this wild kingdom. He observed the intricate dance of predator and prey, the life cycles of plants he had never known, the silent, patient power of the mountains. He was alone, yet surrounded by a world that was ancient, powerful, and utterly devoid of judgment. The silence of the land of Nod was a living thing. It was not merely the absence of sound, but a profound presence that filled every space. In this quiet, Cain's thoughts grew louder, echoing in the chambers of his mind. He would often talk to himself. He would argue with the ghost of his brother. He would plead with the image of God. He would whisper questions to the unblinking stars. He began to dream of a different life, not the life he had lost, but a new one. He dreamt of building something again. He dreamt of putting his hands to work, not just for survival but for creation. The farmer in him was not entirely dead. He was cursed from farming for himself, but the instinct remained. As he traveled further east, the land began to change. Desolate plains gave way to rolling hills. He saw signs of life, not just animal or plant. A faint footpath, the remains of an old campfire, a carved piece of wood left behind. These were signs of other people. The thought was terrifying and thrilling. Who were they? Would they see the mark on him and fear him, or would they see a man in need? For the first time in a long while, the possibility of ending his solitude flickered like a distant star. But as he stood on a ridge overlooking a valley and saw the distant smoke of a settlement, a new feeling began to take root in his soul. It was not yet hope, but the seed of it. The wanderer was about to find something. He was about to find someone. Cain followed the signs of life, his heart a mix of fear and a strange, forgotten curiosity. The smoke he had seen led him toward a small settlement nestled in a green valley. This was the land of Nod. It was not a grand city, but a collection of simple dwellings. It was a place where other people lived. After an age of solitude, the sight of community was both a shock and a balm to his soul. These were not his family, not his people, but they were people nonetheless. They were a testament that humanity, seeded by his parents, had already begun to spread and take root in the world. These people were different. They were the descendants of Adam and Eve's other children, who had ventured out into the world. Their culture had evolved separately. They were hunters and gatherers, artisans, builders. They had their own customs, their own stories, and their own ways of understanding the world. They were a new branch on the growing tree of humanity, vibrant and full of life. Cain watched them from a distance at first, a ghost on the edge of their world. He saw them work together, building their homes, tending to their children, and sharing their meals. He observed the rhythm of their lives. There was a warmth here, a sense of belonging that he had not felt since his own childhood. It was a painful reminder of what he had lost, but it also sparked a deep, desperate longing within him. He wondered how they would receive him. Would they see it and cast him out, fearing the curse he carried? Or would they see a weary traveler, a man broken by a long and punishing journey? Gathering every ounce of courage he had left, Cain decided he could not remain in the shadows forever. With a heavy heart and a tentative step, he began to walk down from the hills and toward the light of their settlement. As Cain approached the village, a young woman was returning from the river. She was the first to see him. She stopped, her eyes widening at the sight of this strange, world-weary man. He emerged from the wilderness. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen. His clothes were tattered, his skin was weathered, and his eyes held a depth of sorrow that seemed as ancient as the mountains. She did not run or scream, but simply stood, her curiosity stronger than her fear. Her name, in the stories passed down, was Awan. She was known for her kindness and her perceptive spirit. She saw past the grime and the exhaustion. She saw the man beneath the wanderer. In his eyes, she did not see a monster, but a soul in immense pain. He stopped a respectful distance away. The silence between them was thick with unspoken questions. Awan felt a pull, a sense of empathy for this lonely stranger. She was the first to speak. She asked him who he was and what brought him to their land. Cain found his own voice to be a rough and unfamiliar sound. He did not give his name at first, simply saying he was a traveler from the west, a man without a home. He spoke of his long journey, but he could not bring himself to speak of the reason for his exile. Instead of recoiling, Awan listened. She also saw the mark on his forehead. To her, it was not a symbol of a divine curse. Her people had different stories. They saw it as a sign of protection. She saw not a murderer, but a survivor. With a gesture of welcome, she invited him to follow her into the village, to have some water and rest. It was the first act of kindness Cain had received in an eternity. Awan led Cain into the heart of the settlement. The other villagers gathered, their faces a mixture of suspicion and intrigue. Awan spoke to her elders. She vouched for him. Cautiously, they offered him a place by the fire and a simple meal, a taste of a life he thought was lost forever. Over the next few days, Cain began to slowly, carefully share his story. He spoke in fragments. He talked about his parents and the garden they had lost. He spoke of a brother, his voice cracking with a grief so profound that it needed no explanation. Awan sat with him, listening without judgment. She became his confidant. She did not offer easy comfort, but she offered something far more valuable, her unwavering attention and her deep empathy. He learned about her and her people in return. He discovered their history, their beliefs, and their way of life. He saw in them a different way to live. A path that was not defined by struggle and dominance, but by balance and community. A connection began to form between Cain and Awan. A bridge built of shared words and silent understanding. He was drawn to her quiet strength. She was fascinated by his deep sorrow and the flicker of resilience that still burned within him. In her, Cain began to see the possibility of a future. In him, she saw a man who could be healed. Their meeting was not just a chance encounter, it was the collision of two histories, the beginning of a new chapter for them both. The bond between Cain and Awan deepened. It was clear to all that these two souls were meant to build a life together. The elders of the village gave their blessing. Cain, the exile from the west, would marry Awan, the daughter of Nod. This was not just a union of two people, it was a promise of a new beginning. The news of the impending wedding sent a ripple of gentle excitement through the settlement. Preparations began almost immediately. The first step in the preparations was the building of a new home for the couple. This was a communal effort. Cain worked alongside them, his powerful hands now helping to raise the walls of his own home. Each beam he lifted feeling like a step away from his past. Awan was by his side. As they worked, they talked, planning their future home and the life they would live within it. This act of creation was profoundly healing for Cain. He was building instead of wandering, creating instead of destroying. The house that rose from the earth was more than just a shelter, it was a symbol of his redemption. On the evening before the wedding, Awan was taken by the women of the village to the river for a ritual of purification. Cain, meanwhile, spent his final night as a solitary man in quiet reflection. He gave thanks for the mercy of the mark that had kept him alive, and for the grace he had found in the heart of Awan and her people. The sun rose on the day of the wedding. Awan was being prepared. Cain also prepared himself. The whole village began to gather in the central clearing. Cain was led to the sacred circle. A hush fell as Awan appeared. She stepped inside and stood opposite him. The village elder stepped forward to begin the ritual. He acknowledged the spirits of the land of Nod, and he spoke of the one God of the West. The elder then lit the ceremonial fire. He bound their hands with a cord. Their hands tied, Cain and Awan made their vows. The elder declared them husband and wife. A great cheer erupted. The celebration of life could truly begin. Cain presented Awan with the gift he had made. In return, she gave him a bracelet woven from her own hair. Dancing with his wife, surrounded by his new family, Cain was finally home. The man who was cursed to be a restless wanderer had found a place to put down roots. Cain felt a powerful urge to create on a larger scale. The Bible tells us that Cain built a city. He named it after his firstborn son, Enoch. The city of Enoch became the first recorded city in human history. Through Cain and Awan, the family tree branched out. Their descendants became pioneers. They first dwelt in tents. They raised livestock. They crafted music. They forged tools from bronze. They forged tools from iron. His path is a microcosm of human life. We fall. We suffer. But marriage shows a path to redemption and new beginnings. It is a story of hope, of resilience, of love building family and civilization's foundations. The untold story of Cain's wedding is a song of hope echoing through millennia. It challenges us to search for the light in the shadows, to believe in the possibility of new beginnings. Cain's journey from the field of tragedy to the arms of his wife is not just his story. It is the story of humanity's resilient struggle to find love and build a future, even in the land of wandering.